Old souls are souls that have been reincarnated many times, and sometimes that leaves scars. Nevertheless, they have a deep understanding of the subtle world around them. But what happens when this sensitivity becomes a real test? That's what we're talking about today, because many old souls are currently tired and exhausted. There are solutions, but first, we need to understand what can break an old soul. Carl Jung gives us some interesting clues. Let me ask you a question first. Do you have that quiet, sometimes painful feeling of not quite belonging here, as if you were a traveler from another time, with memories of places you've never visited and a wisdom you can't explain? If so, then definitely stick with me. This is not a figment of your imagination. It is the invisible echo, the secret call that old souls immediately recognize in their innermost being. It is as if a deep, ancient melody is resonating within you that most people around you cannot hear. You are not alone in this. The great Swiss depth psychologist Carl Gustav Jung spoke of people he called born wise, individuals who come into the world with a kind of archetypal imprint, an innate connection to the deepest layers of the collective unconscious. This imprint often leads to a feeling of alienation in childhood, to an early maturity that their peers do not understand. Do you recognize yourself in this? Perhaps in this precocious empathy that made you feel other people's pain as if it were your own. In this deep tendency toward loneliness, not because you are shy, but because the superficiality of many social interactions drains you and you need silence to feel yourself again, or in this inexplicable deep melancholy that sometimes overwhelms you, a kind of homesickness for a place you can't name. These are not weaknesses, they are signals from your old soul. Jung also spoke of synchronicity, those seemingly random but meaningful coincidences that enter our lives. For old souls, these synchronicities are often like signposts, like quiet reminders from the universe of their true purpose, their mission here on Earth. An unexpected encounter, a book that accidentally falls into your hands, a recurring dream. All of these can be messages nudging you, trying to wake you up. To truly understand this calling and the challenges that come with it, we need to look deeper, beyond the surface of our everyday thoughts and feelings. We have arrived at the core of the problem, the thing that disrupts old souls. Imagine that your psyche is not an impenetrable chaos, not a dark forest full of uncontrollable monsters, but a precisely drawn, fascinating map, a map that Carl Jung left us. He described our psyche as a multi-layered system. At the top, on the surface, is our conscious self, the ego. This is the part we identify within everyday life, our mind, our will, our sense of I. But this is only the tip of the iceberg, the smallest part. Directly below lies the personal unconscious. This is where all our forgotten memories, our repressed feelings, our personal complexes are stored. The unresolved emotional knots from our biography. It is like the basement of our psychological house, filled with things we would rather not look at. And even deeper, like a huge, connecting ocean beneath everything, lies the collective unconscious. This is the psychological heritage of all humanity, a universal layer that we all share. Here we find archetypes, the primal images of human experience, such as the hero, the mother, the wise man, the shadow. Old souls often have particularly easy access to this collective unconscious, which is why they sometimes feel overwhelmed by universal themes and deep emotions. There are two particularly important points on this map for old souls: the persona and the self. The persona is the mask we show to the world, our social role, the image we want to project. The self, on the other hand, is the true center of our psyche, the archetype of wholeness, the divine spark within us that strives for integration and authenticity. The problem many old souls face is that because they feel so different, Because they sense that they do not conform to the norms, they often constrict their persona particularly tightly. They desperately try to fit in, to appear normal, to hide their deep sensitivity and wisdom. They become masters of adaptation, but under this perfected mask, they slowly suffocate. They lose touch with their true self, with their actual source of strength. Within this drama, certain archetypes often play a key role in the lives of old souls. There is the archetype of the wise old man. Innate wisdom, deep insight. The advantage, you understand many things intuitively. The disadvantage, you often feel precocious, misunderstood, and isolated. Then there is the archetype of the orphan child. The feeling of being abandoned, different, not belonging. The advantage, it promotes independence and a deep search for truth. The disadvantage, it can lead to chronic loneliness, mistrust, and a feeling of not belonging anywhere. And often the archetype of the magician, the ability to perceive energies, influence reality, and see behind the veil. The advantage, enormous intuitive and creative power. The disadvantage, the danger of losing oneself in esoteric worlds, losing one's footing, or being overwhelmed by the intensity of one's perceptions. These archetypes are not good or bad, but if we live them unconsciously or identify with only one of them, they can tear us apart. To take a first step toward integration, let's try a little exercise. If you like, take a sheet of paper and a pen now or later. Draw a circle, your soul mandala. In the middle, write self. Then, intuitively, begin to symbolically arrange the different parts of your psyche, the archetypes you feel within yourself, the feelings that move you, in the circle. Where is the wise man? Where is the orphaned child? Where is your pain? Where is your joy? It's not about creating a perfect picture, but about establishing an initial dialogue with your inner map. This mandala is your personal compass for the journey ahead. This inner map is often particularly finely drawn in old souls whose channels of perception are more open. This leads to heightened sensitivity, which can be both a blessing and a curse. Have you ever wondered why a critical word can hit you like a punch in the face? Why you immediately pick up on moods in a room as if they were your own? Why injustice or suffering in the world can shake you so deeply? This is not imagination or hypersensitivity in a negative sense. It often has a real basis. Psychologists talk about high sensitivity, about thin boundaries between the self and the outside world. Your neural filters are more permeable, you take in more stimuli and process them more deeply and intensely. This enables you to feel deep empathy, intuition, and creativity, but it also makes you more susceptible to overstimulation and emotional bleeding. And our modern world is a minefield for thin-skinned souls. The constant sensory overload from digital media, the noise, the hustle and bustle, the social pressure to always be online, always available, always perfect. This is the exact opposite of what your soul needs: silence, depth, authenticity, closeness to nature. The constant dopamine rush of social media stands in stark contrast to your deep need for meaning and genuine connection. You feel like a fish out of water, desperately gasping for air in a world that is increasingly becoming a desert. This discrepancy between your inner being and the demands of the outside world often leads to a painful misalignment of your persona. You try to play along in the theater of society, taking on a role that doesn't suit you. You smile when you want to cry. You say yes when your whole system is screaming no. You try to appear strong and untouchable while you're breaking inside. This constant denial of your true self, this inner balancing act, has devastating consequences. It is a breeding ground for addictions, as an attempt to numb the pain or escape reality. It leads to burnout because you completely exhaust your energy reserves in an attempt to play a false role. It can result in deep depression because your soul suffocates under the weight of inauthenticity. The disintegration that many old souls feel is often the result of this desperate attempt to survive in a world that doesn't seem to be made for their sensitivity, losing touch with themselves in the process. Let's pause for a moment. If you are feeling overwhelmed or flooded right now, try this 60-second body scan. Close your eyes if possible. Focus your attention on different parts of your body, starting with your feet. Just feel what is there without judging it. Are your feet warm or cold? Relaxed or tense? Slowly move up to your legs, pelvis, and stomach. How does your breath feel? Shallow or deep? Continue to your chest and shoulders. Where do you hold tension? Move to your arms and hands, to your neck, your head, your face. Consciously relax your jaw muscles and your forehead. Just observe for 1 minute. This short exercise brings you back from the merry-go-round of thoughts to your body, grounds you, and can dampen acute emotional overload. It is a small tool to help you better cope with the strain on your sensitivity. Overstimulation, maladjustment, feelings of being torn apart, all of these often have deeper roots, an area that we usually prefer to ignore, our shadow. What if I told you that what you fear most, what you reject most, could in fact be your most powerful ally on the path to healing and wholeness? Jung defined the shadow as the negative part of our personality, the sum of everything we consciously or unconsciously reject and repress because it does not fit our idealized self-image or social norms. These are not just the obvious dark things like anger, envy, greed, or aggression. In the shadows of old souls, we often find completely different, surprising things, repressed desires for power or recognition. Because we have learned to be modest, suppressed joie de vivre and sensuality. Because we feel too serious or responsible, a deep, unlived eroticism, or even a powerful but feared spirituality that does not fit into our rational worldview. The shadow contains everything we do not allow ourselves to be. The problem is that what we repress does not disappear. It continues to work in the unconscious and seeks a way to come to light, often in destructive ways. One of the main mechanisms is projection. We do not see our own unrecognized shadow within ourselves, but project it onto other people or situations outside ourselves. The boss who seems so unbearably authoritarian to us may reflect our own suppressed power. The friend who annoys us with her supposed superficiality may confront us with our own repressed lightheartedness. We often attract toxic relationships because our partner unconsciously embodies a part of our shadow that we ourselves do not want to live or look at. Another consequence of shadow repression can be escapism, retreating into fantasy worlds, excessive spirituality, or isolation to avoid confronting our own dark sides and the challenges of reality. The disintegration of the old soul is often fueled by this unconscious struggle with our own shadow. Healing does not lie in defeating or eradicating the shadow. That is impossible. It lies in becoming aware of it, accepting it, and integrating its energy. How can this be done in practice? Jung developed the method of active imagination for this purpose. It is a dialogue with the figures of your unconscious. Here's how it works, step by step. Find a quiet place and state of mind. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. Let your everyday thoughts come to rest. Choose a gateway to your unconscious. This can be a feeling that is currently preoccupying you, e.g., fear, anger, sadness, an image from a dream, a physical sensation, or simply the intention to encounter your shadow. Allow an inner image to emerge. Wait patiently, without forcing it, until an image, a figure, or a scene appears in your mind's eye. It can be anything: a person, an animal, a mythical creature, a landscape. Enter into dialogue. Address this inner figure. Ask them, who are you? What do you want from me? What message do you have for me? Listen to the answer. It may come as words, feelings, or further images. Be respectful, but also clear in your intention to understand. Interact and negotiate. Continue the conversation. Express your own feelings. Ask about the positive core behind the perhaps threatening exterior. Sometimes the shadow needs recognition. Sometimes a boundary needs to be set. Sometimes a solution or compromise can be found. End consciously and integrate. When the dialogue feels complete, thank the figure and slowly return to waking consciousness. Write down what you experienced or draw a picture of it. Reflect on it. What did you learn? How can you integrate the message into your life? Active imagination is not just a fantasy journey, but a powerful technique for bringing unconscious content into consciousness and releasing the energy bound within it. But beware, shadow work can be intense and touch deep wounds. Especially if you have experienced trauma, it is essential not to go through this process alone. Seek professional support, ideally from a therapist trained in Jungian analytical depth psychology. A therapist can provide a safe space, help you interpret your experiences, and ensure that confronting your shadow does not lead to renewed overwhelm. Shadow work is the courageous path from repression to acceptance, from victim to creator. This path of shadow work, of confronting one's own depths, often leads through a phase that mystics refer to as the dark night of the soul. It is a time of crisis, disorientation, and feeling completely lost. Old certainties break away, faith wanes, the light at the end of the tunnel is no longer visible. For old souls, this experience can be particularly intense because they often came into the world with a deep wound or a feeling of exile. But from Jung's perspective, this dark night is not a sign of failure, but a necessary threshold rite, a crucial transition on the path to individuation, the process of becoming oneself and achieving wholeness. It is comparable to the nigredo in alchemy, the phase of blackening, the dissolution of the old, from which only the new, the gold, can emerge. Paradoxically, this darkness holds the greatest potential for transformation. It is the moment when the old, adapted persona breaks down and space is created for the true self. It is the moment when we are forced to let go of external securities and find a deeper source of trust in ourselves. How do you navigate through this dark night? Jung emphasized the importance of dreams. In times of crisis, the unconscious often speaks to us particularly clearly through our dreams. They are like an inner GPS that shows us the way, even when the mind has no answers. Keep a dream journal. Write down your dreams immediately after waking up, in as much detail as possible, without censoring them. Pay attention to recurring symbols, emotions, and people. Get a good symbol dictionary. Jung himself wrote extensively on this topic, but other authors such as Marie-Louise von France have also contributed. And try to understand the universal meaning of the symbols, but always connect them to your personal life situation. What does this symbol mean to you right now? Another important practice is keeping a synchronicity log. Start paying attention to the coincidences in your life that feel meaningful. Write them down. The unexpected encounter, the song on the radio with the fitting message, the animal that crosses your path. For Jung, these synchronicities are not mere coincidences, but manifestations of the interaction between the inner and outer world, evidence of a deeper order and guidance from the self. Consciously collecting these events strengthens your trust in this guidance and helps you recognize patterns and messages. The deeper meaning of the dark night and the entire journey of individuation is the integration of opposites within us. Jung spoke of the need to unite the poles, consciousness and unconsciousness, thinking and feeling, introversion and extroversion, and above all, the masculine and feminine energies within us. Animus, the masculine principle in women, and anima, the feminine principle in men. This integration is particularly important for old souls who can often be very sensitive, more anima-oriented, or very wise and rational, more animus-oriented. It is about developing and embracing the other side, in order to find inner balance and wholeness. The dark night often forces us to develop precisely those parts of ourselves that we have neglected up to now. For example, if you have been very head-heavy, you may be confronted with overwhelming feelings. If you have been very emotional, you may need to learn to think more clearly and set boundaries. This process of breaking down and rebuilding yourself is painful, but it ultimately leads to a stronger, more authentic, and more integrated self. It is here, in the darkest night, that your personal myth is decided. Will you sink into chaos, or will you rise like a phoenix from the ashes to your true greatness? The journey through the dark night and the integration of the shadow parts is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Healing and wholeness do not happen overnight, but through continuous practice and loving attention to yourself. Imagine that healing is not a distant, unattainable place, but a daily micro-ritual, a small step you take every day for your soul. What could such a daily practice look like? Here is a simple 3-phase routine that you can adapt to your needs. Silence phase, 5 to 10 minutes. Don't start your day with your phone, but with a few minutes of conscious silence. Just sit down, close your eyes, and listen to your breath or the sounds around you. Allow yourself to just be, without having to do or achieve anything. This silence creates space for yourself and calms the nervous system. Writing phase, 5 to 10 minutes. Take your journal, dream journal, synchronicity log, or simply a blank notebook, and write freely about whatever is on your mind. What did you dream about? What feelings are present? What thoughts are running through your head? Don't censor yourself, just let it flow. This writing is an important channel for bringing the unconscious into consciousness and processing emotions. Symbolic action phase, 1 to 5 minutes. Choose a small conscious action that symbolizes your intention for the day or your connection to yourself. This could be lighting a candle, drawing a tarot or oracle card, consciously drinking a glass of water with gratitude, saying an affirmation, or briefly performing your boundary ritual. The point is to anchor your inner work in the outer world with a concrete gesture. To deepen your active imagination, you can listen to guided inner journey sequences or create your own. Find a comfortable position, relax, and let a gentle voice or your own intuition guide you to an inner place, a safe garden, a cave, a temple. There you can consciously invite figures from your unconscious and enter into dialogue with them, as described above. These guided journeys can help facilitate access and create a safe framework. Another powerful method for processing and transformation is creative transmutation. When you feel overwhelmed by intense emotions or archaic energies from the unconscious, anger, sadness, fear, use creative channels as lightning rods. Paint or draw your feelings without worrying about aesthetics. Dance them out of your body, sound or sing them. Write poems or stories about them. Creativity is the language of the soul and a powerful tool for transforming raw energy into something new, often even beautiful and healing. Finally, it is often crucial for old souls to find community, a circle of like-minded people who can understand and support the depth of your journey. Look for modern mystery schools, online circles, retreats, therapy groups, or workshops that deal with Jungian psychology, shadow work, archetypes, or other profound spiritual paths. Sharing with others who are going through similar experiences can be incredibly validating and healing. You don't have to walk this path alone. Once you have walked through the dark night, embraced your shadow, and begun to integrate your opposites, you enter a new phase. You are no longer just the wounded, broken old soul. You begin to embody the wisdom and power that lay hidden in your deepest wound. Your wound has not disappeared, but it has become a window through which light, your light, can shine for you and for others. Here, you enter the archetype of the wounded healer, symbolized by Chiron in astrology. The wounded healer is someone who has gone through their own deep suffering, and through this has gained the ability to accompany and understand others on their healing journey. Your sensitivity is no longer a weakness, but your greatest strength. Your experiences with pain and turmoil make you a compassionate and wise companion for others. How can you actualize this archetype in your life? It doesn't have to mean becoming a therapist. It can show up in your career by bringing more compassion and depth to your work. It can show up in your relationships by loving more authentically and with greater awareness of boundaries. It can manifest in spiritual activism. Old souls often have a keen sense of collective wounds and injustices. You can use your energy and wisdom to contribute to the healing of collective trauma fields in subtle or overt ways, whether through peace work, environmental protection, social projects, or simply by spreading awareness and compassion in your community.